Welcome to the Suite Life. I'm your host, Kristi Andersen. The Suite Life is all about having real conversations with real leaders in our community, not just about how they've succeeded in business, but also what they've managed to do in their personal lives to reach success. And I am so pleased today to be joined by Leslie Little. Leslie is the founder and CEO of E3 International Ltd, if I said that correctly.
That's my previous company.
Okay.
Ethical Decision Making is the current one.
Ethical Decision Making, but you've been previously at E3 and then the River Group and Korn Ferry, and you have an amazing background in leadership and talent management. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, my interest in leadership really started quite young when I trace it back. I had the privilege of going to Georgetown University. I studied international relations and history, and I was asked to write a history honors thesis. And my thesis title was Personality, Power, and Politics, Decision Making in the Johnson White House around the Vietnam War. And I think my love of history stemmed from the difference one decision and one good leader at the right moment in history can make or break the outcome of something. And I followed that through in my career. I went and got my MBA. I started my career in finance, then I went and got my MBA at Berkeley. And my first job out of business school was being a management strategy consultant. And my first project was a 52-country reorg of Chevron's HR department globally. And I said on day 10 of the job, I don't need an MBA. I need a PhD in psychology.
Right.
Anybody can sit down with a spreadsheet and figure out how to cut costs and how to move people around the globe to come out with a more cost-efficient answer. But changing organizations, changing culture is the hard work.
It is.
And the soft skills are what we don't learn and we don't teach leaders. So I more and more then throughout my entire consulting career just started focusing on leadership and psychology and what does it take to really create great leaders.
You know, and most people have heard a little bit about strengths-based assessments and things like Strength Finders, and there's a number of other trainings out there. But what you are doing with your partners is quite different. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. Well, the genesis of the business was that, I have observed unethical behavior the higher up I got in my career. Almost, it's sort of the innocence is bliss, right? The more you know and the more you're exposed to, the more you see how the short-termism of the capital markets, the pressure on profits, and the executive compensation packages are leading to people that push the limits.
Yeah.
And the focus is on the shareholders and the top executive pay. It's not on well-rounded good leadership or what I would call stakeholder ethical capitalism. So we're part of that movement now of ethical capitalism and stakeholder capitalism, where we say decisions matter, all stakeholders' interests matter, and we need to focus on different measurements. And part of the issue and the gap that our new company, Ethical Decision Making, is trying to fill is that we don't measure this and we don't hire for it. So we have the first ever tool where we can quantify an executive's ethical decision-making quotient, ETQ. How well-rounded and fluent are you as an ethical leader? And boards know they need to screen for this. They're aware of the catastrophic risk of an FTX or a Theranos or another Volkswagen scandal. You can destroy your brand in 30 seconds in today's world with Twitter and social media, right? So boards are aware of it, but they have no way to screen for it. And the executive search firms, the two that I used to work for and was a partner at, Korn Ferry and Egon Zehnder, and all the rest of the top major search firms aren't screening for it because they don't have any way to screen for it. We now have the tool that you can screen for it and measure it.
And it's so important. I think you shared a statistic that I thought was extremely eye-opening, that 39% of CEOs are fired within the first 18 months of being on the job in that position due to unethical behavior such as bribery, fraud, insider trading. That is crazy. And it's hard to believe that that's actually true. But what's behind that statistic, do you think?
The drive for profit and short-term gain. It is a shocking statistic. Korn Ferry Institute published it. I couldn't believe they published it. They are a search firm.
Right.
And that was the genesis of my business. I had found the tool. It's an academic tool, 10 years of research, 10 years of backing out of academia. And once I saw that statistic, I said, that right there is our market.
Right.
If we can move the needle on a 40% failure rate out of the entire talent management industry, we've got a good business.
So you've got the tools, you've developed these proprietary tools now, and how is it being received in the business community?
Extremely well. We're early on. As we just finished beta testing of our top 3 products, which is executive assessment. We have 2 team workshops and board workshops, and we have an organizational culture survey. And the feedback has been phenomenal on all of them. And people like you who were at the EthicSpace conference last week and got exposed to the tool, I think people immediately saw the value add of learning to slow down and use this tool to improve your decision making, whether that's as an individual or as a team.
And it'll be, I mean, we didn't get here overnight, right?
No.
At all. I mean, we are in a society where, you know, we're deeply embedded with the win at all costs, fast-paced mentality. It's what we've taught our young leaders that they need to be like to succeed in business and in life in general, keeping up with the Joneses, all of it. So how do we start to right that ship and unwind that type of behavior? It's gonna have to be very systemic.
And that's what I love about our tool. It is universal, it is systemic, it applies across all languages, all cultures, all religions, and the answer is we have to start early.
Yeah.
Ethical decision making has 2 sets of products. One is B2B to go after the business corporate market, MBA students, right, where we can change leadership thinking of the people, quote, in power. But the real audience is K through 12.
Okay.
How do we get to young people and create a universal language so that people think of ethics as an esoteric, academic, philosophical subject. It's not. It's everyday decision making. This tool was started at James Madison University, and they onboard all of their freshman classes with it now. And universally, when the freshmen come in, they say, I don't have any ethical issues in my life. I'm just an 18-year-old. What are you talking about? I don't need to know ethics. And when they go through this, they think, oh, my God, almost every decision I make has some ethical component to it. How I treat my girlfriend, how I treat my research and my studying, and do I cheat and use AI, or do I actually, have integrity in terms of how I learn? So we know it applies to younger generations, and that's where we'll really move the needle. And I think the younger generations are hungry for it. They're not buying into the type A, win at all costs, measure your success in life solely by your net worth, your financial net worth. They want a different way. They want a better environment. They want a more balanced system. So I think the younger generation is hungry for it and ready for it. So we have a top-down, bottom-up approach. You don't change the world overnight. It's our motto, our mission statement is changing the world one decision at a time.
I think you're right.
And whether that's the decision of how 11-year-olds stop cyberbullying each other online or how a CEO makes a decision, both of those things will move the needle.
I think you're spot on. And as a mom of 2 teenagers, one who's about ready to graduate high school and another one that's right behind him, I tell my kids all the time, it takes 0 talent to show up on time, be a good person, to make the right decision, not cheat, not, that kind of thing. But I don't know, with all of the influences that our kids have around them at all times with social media and the constant comparison, it's a tough world out there. But I think you're right. This generation seems to want more of the experience, and that would be wonderful, right? If we could empower them to do what you're talking about.
Yeah, and this is why the measuring of this is so important. We get what we measure.
Right.
If all we measure is how much money you've made in a short period of time by trading questionable, entities like cryptocurrency, that's what you're going to get. When we can measure this and we start rewarding for it and we start hiring for it, the good guys should get ahead more and the good women should get ahead more. What we have promoted is there's studies out of it. We're actually partnering with Berkeley, where I got my MBA. There are academics who are studying the correlation between narcissism and sort of almost sociopathic behavior that lacks any empathy, and those that get promoted to the top jobs. There's a definite personality type of aggression and ability to compartmentalize that is rewarded in our current system.
As we think about just the workplace in general and how it has so dramatically changed since the pandemic, with more and more companies fully remote or hybrid, and I'm in the commercial real estate space, and so we see it in the office market, and more companies are starting to kind of come back to the office because they're recognizing that it's really hard to build a culture when you don't know people
Yeah.
and you don't see people. So at least the hybrid approach of a couple of days in is important. But how difficult has that made this, what we're talking about here, onboarding new employees, building the proper ethical culture? How difficult has the remote work, do you think, made that? Or what do we need to do to get back to a place where people do feel valued in their workplace?
Yeah, well, one of the top values that we know whenever you survey employees is a culture where you can learn.
Right.
People want career paths and opportunity to learn. So our tools, we are building an edutech platform, so we'll be able to onboard all employees, and we'll be able to certify people level 1, level 2, level 3 proficient in this tool. So it's a benefit to both the employee and the company to say we take ethics seriously, we're ethically certified. So the young generation hopefully can have a learning path from this and see that as a benefit. But the other benefit is coming into the office and being around great leaders. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be where I was in my career if I weren't sitting around and learning and watching some of the smartest people I know to this day in my office. And that's where opportunities come. And that doesn't happen over Zoom. So I worry for this generation that they're losing teamwork, socialization, but they're really losing the chance to be mentored and to learn by osmosis, right? You learn a ton just by being around good people.
Absolutely. I mean, the things that you pick up in the office, and again, it might not have anything to do with business. It might just be making a new friendship. There's personal things, when we spend time around other people, it's good for us.
Yeah.
And so I think people have we're sort of 5 years in now after the pandemic, right? I think we're coming on the other side of it where people have recognized that, listen, we do need to get folks back. We also want to be flexible and be good employers. We have flexibility with their families. So, they're trying to figure out the right way to do that. But precisely, I what we're talking about, I'm not sure can be done over Zoom.
No, and it's a balance between giving people the flexibility they need, but the other thing that really drives satisfaction, job satisfaction, life satisfaction is being committed to a purpose.
Right.
Being committed to something bigger than you are. And I was deeply committed in my 20s and 30s. I was passionate about what we were doing. And I was lucky to join a company that was revolutionizing an industry, so it was fun. But it gave me a huge sense of purpose to work my tail off and be there all the time for this mission. And I think, again, young people are missing out on that sense of commitment and being energized and fired up, right? And there's times when you can have balance and there's times when you can't in life.
Right. You talk a lot about slow down to have success, that work smarter, not harder. And again, in our culture with the fast-paced environment, the win at all costs, and I personally have a personal problem with slowing down and saying no to things. I think we're just all sort of made to feel that that's what we have to do to succeed. So what advice do you have for those who know they need to do that, want to do that, but don't know how to do that?
Yeah, well, as I said, I'm an executive coach as well as running the company. So that's a whole coaching, conversation to be had about setting boundaries. It's about moving the measurement system from external measurements of how much I do to who am I being. It's about being versus doing at the core of it, which sounds very sort of, like a good yoga mantra, but it's true.
Right.
And when you understand who you're being, you can make much better prioritization decisions. And prioritization means not doing it all.
Right.
It means doing the things that are going to move the needle and either delegating or forgetting the other things.
Right.
So it's a executive management skill really about prioritization and clarity and focus of what are you trying to achieve and who are you being in the process.
You mentioned entering the K-12 space, which I think is awesome. And if you can get to those young people earlier, then maybe in our next generation, we will have a whole new generation of ethical leaders. What is on the horizon for you and your partners? I mean, what are you hoping to accomplish? You've these are some new tools that you're getting the word out about right now, but what do you see this looking like in the next 5 to 10 years?
Our business plan is pretty clear on that. We need to go and sell a segment of the corporate market. So we are talking to CHROs, we are talking to boards, we are talking to CEOs. Those are really our clients who will be hiring us. And we're positioning this as upgrading your talent management system to talent management 2.0. everybody's looking for a way to move beyond ESG and DEI. They were well intended, but they were sort of flavor du jour, right? Of, oh, here's another best-selling management practice, right? Sure. That we can all follow, but they haven't moved the needle in the way that people had hoped. Upgrading your talent management system and putting ethics at the core of everything you do in terms of how you hire, how you promote, how you develop, how you make decisions will move the needle. So that's our core market, is to really influence the way the corporate talent management systems are run, and particularly the hiring of top executives, right? If we aren't assessing for this, we're not going to change anything. So that's our core business model, is to go after that. Then we have the K through 12 piece. We have the online edutech platform, which is really a business to consumer, right? Anybody can become certified in this. So we're going to go out and make it known that we think this is universally important. And hopefully people will want to be certified in it to boost their own learning, boost their own employment, saleability to an employer. And then there's another big play we think we have, either by getting to the regulators in certain industries to say this should be mandatory, not optional. If you're going to be certified, you need to uphold these ethical standards, just as doctors and lawyers uphold ethical standards. And there's potentially a play with the directors and officers insurance industry, again, to say you should not be certifying directors and officers unless you screen them. So we have multiple revenue streams, multiple potential markets that we are systematically going after.
And how can people, if someone's watching this today and they think this is great for themselves, for their company, for another organization that they're involved in, how can they find more information about what you're doing? Yeah,
go to our website, www.8kq.org. And 8KQ is the 8 key questions. That's our tool that we have the proprietary trademarked intellectual property around. So www.8kq.org, and you can send us an email and get in contact with us. And you can also read much more about the tool and the product.
Wonderful. And just one last piece of advice for anyone who's listening that maybe they want to become a more ethical leader. They know that they do. Are there any just small little baby steps that they could be taking right now, in addition to checking out your website and checking out your product?
Yeah, call us and get certified on the tool. Start with level 1, right? Or call us and have a team workshop done for your teams. The tool is not hard to use. It just takes discipline, and like any change of behavior, it takes habituating. The more we can expose you to it, and then you can adopt it and start using it both in your personal life and your professional life. It doesn't matter. The tool is universal.
Well, I think we're at a place, with what you'd mentioned. I mean, every time you turn on the television or you look at social media, there is another example of a company that has maybe done something that has not been the most ethical. So I think we're at a place where people really are understanding the need for the tools that you are providing.
I agree. A lot of people say, how can you be launching a company right now? It's so unethical what's going on in the world and what's going on in the U.S. in terms of politics and everything. I said, all the more reason our timing is perfect.
Absolutely.
There's I think a stronger and stronger understanding that the current system is cracked, if not broken. And this is a tool that I love because it's apolitical. It's a universal language where we can all meet in the middle and discuss issues and agree. It's non-polarized, it's non-emotional, and we have to agree on what it takes to be a good citizen, what it takes to be a good leader, or we are headed for a worse fate. So I love the tool because it helps that dialogue that I think could bring some healing on lots of levels right now.
It would be very refreshing. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today, Leslie.
Thank you, Kristi, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. And thank you for joining us on The Suite Life.